Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Adam. Thank you for joining us. We have a great show for you today. This is live, and we're going to be talking about the native MixEffect companion module. And I am going to be joined today by developer Johnny Estilles, and he is from the Philippines. So let's bring him in right now without further ado. Johnny, how are you doing? Hold on one second. Looks like my AirPods have stopped working and I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Were you muted?
Excellent. I was double muted here. I forgot to unmute myself when the show started. Well,
Yeah.
yes, I'm Johnny. Nice to meet you, Adam.
Yeah. Thank you for being on the show with us and for developing the companion module. So first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll get started talking about the module.
Sure, absolutely. I'm Johnny Estilles, like Adam mentioned. I'm a software developer, and I've been in the industry for a little bit over 30 years. Most of the time I spend in the defense industry doing a lot of different stuff. But about 10 years ago, I decided to move to web development, and I've been doing that for, like I said, for about 10 years. Most recently, I was director of engineering at freelancer.com, and currently I'm actually serving as engineering site lead for SiteMinder here in the Philippines. When it comes to live streaming and video production, though, my gateway to this was very strange. I was streaming some events for some local communities that were meeting at our space at Freelancer when I worked there. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and I started trying to help them organize and live stream their events as well. So there is a series of organizations that I actually help live stream here in the Philippines. One of them is Ministry of Testing, which is an organization dedicated to software quality and helping QAs and quality engineers further their knowledge. There's another organization called Agile Leaders Philippines, which is basically an organization that helps local leaders, learn about Agile and learn about Scrum and help implement that in their organizations. And another one that I would like to mention is Cypress.io, which we started recently, which basically is to further the education of quality engineers also when it comes to quality automation and automation engineering, specifically using Cypress.io. There's a series of other organizations as well, but those are the ones that I wanted to mention today.
That's great. And why don't you tell us a little bit about how you found out about MixEffect?
That's an interesting story. I have been trying to use the super source feature in the A10 Mini Extreme ISO, ever since that it started. And I've tried everything, obviously. And I assume that many of us that have used the Extreme ISO have tried, using macros. A to Z Production actually had some macros that they published as well. I tried using theirs because they were nice and animated. Fortunately, they had certain limitations. Doc Johnson also has another version that used something called Just Macros. It's an interesting implementation as well, which was cool. But then during an episode of Office Hours, I encountered MixEffect. And I found it interesting, first of all, because it was an iPad app, so I can actually visually control the entire Stream Deck from my iPad. In addition to the fact that it had all the features to visually configure the super sources, animate the super sources, etc. And the fact that it had a OSC control, it allowed me to control the MixEffect app from the Stream Deck using the generic OSC module within Companion.
That's right. And speaking of which, so the first version of kind of OSC support and companion Stream Deck support came after MixEffect was released. And someone said, it'd be great if we can be controlled on a Stream Deck. I'm like, oh, I'll take a look at it, And then I looked at the documentation. It was actually not that hard to implement. So I wrote the initial version. And then you have to use the generic OSC kind of module, and then you have to type in, you have to know all the commands and then all the parameters. It was kind of confusing. If you kind of understood how a companion module worked, you could kind of do it. But a lot of people were clamoring for a native version, one that had like menus and a drop down list of exactly all the commands. So what gave you kind of the idea to make this? Because I actually posted on some things like, I don't know how to make a companion module, but if someone out there could do it, please go ahead. So what got you kind of interested in taking on the mantle?
Well, I started out with Companion about the same time that I got my Stream Deck. And uh, I was trying to control, several different devices. But originally, actually, I got it to control vMix, and OBS, and I got into QLab, and I got it to control that. But there were a lot of things that the native Stream Deck software could not do, so that's why I decided to switch into Companion. And while I was doing that, I realized that there were features that I wanted that the modules didn't have, so I as any good software developer would do, I cloned the repo. I started looking to see if I could actually add those features myself. In the process, I encountered a few bugs that I decided that I wanted to fix, and that's how I got into developing companion modules as well. Another thing is that I usually use Homebridge here to control like lighting and stuff, in in my house. And there was no Homebridge module for a companion, so I am actually developing one right now so that I can actually control my Homebridge from my Stream Deck. So I've actually been developing for a companion for a while now. And when I saw that MixEffect had OSC capabilities, I actually started to see if there was an existing module already. So I immediately went into their module request page and started looking, and I noticed that you had actually posted an issue there, and one of the individuals from the companion developers group had seemed like he was going to take on the project, but I noticed that his message was a little bit dated, so I decided to reply and post the message again just to see if there was an interest in somebody developing one. I have to admit that I was being a little selfish and a little bit lazy because I actually wanted this for myself. But yes, I got in contact with you. We started talking and we made it happen.
Now, when I got your message that you were doing this, and then I said, "Yeah, go ahead," the other person kind of like ended up not working on it. You wrote the module like within days. Now, had you already started writing it when you emailed me?
No, I had not. I had been studying the OSC commands, so I was already familiar with the OSC commands that you used. I already had a page, controlling MixEffect using the generic OSC module. So since I was already familiar with them, and I had previously already written, several companion modules, it was relatively easy to do.
Oh, that's great. So, and I know during the course of kind of writing this module, we worked on kind of like fixing some bugs and things like that. Like, have you found compared to say like the Homebridge module, is this one easier? Can someone else like pick it up? Because, it's the module is open source, right? So anyone can contribute their own pull requests and kind of improve upon it. And we're going to talk a little bit later in the stream about like what the next steps for the module is.
Sure, absolutely. It's actually the code is relatively simple. I actually used the internal implementation for Companion for OSC. So long as you're familiar with a little bit of JavaScript, you obviously need to be familiar with the Stream Deck. You need to be familiar, obviously, with MixEffect and how that works. Understand the OSC protocol. So long as you understand that, you can very easily jump into the module and contribute.
That's great. So let's see what we got here. I'm actually controlling the show from the Stream Deck right now. You can't see it right now because it's off screen, but here it is right here. So we're going to just push this button and talk about where you can download the companion beta. So before don't click on this link just yet. So tell us a little bit about how the MixEffect module will get into companion, because right now, from what I understand, it's not there yet.
Correct. Typically, whenever there is a new module, there's an entire process that it has to go through in order to be included into their build. Typically, the first step is saying, "Hey, we're interested in creating this module," which you obviously did when you created that issue. Once you found somebody to create one, we requested a repo within their organization, which we did as well. We developed the module, we tested it, and once we were satisfied, we typically have to message the folks from Companion, let them know, hey, our module is ready. Can you please include it into the core so that it appears on the next build? They usually take a few days to actually do it. And we actually only did that last Wednesday basically. So I'm sure within the next few days it'll probably be included in the core. So right now, unfortunately, it's not in their core build yet.
Okay, and a quick question about like modules as they build them in, like if how kind of separate are modules from companion in the sense of like crashing companion? So like they do any QA of these modules because they may not have like an A10 mini to test. Like how does that work, that process?
They actually do not do any QA. Although some of the folks that are in Companion actually have a lot of the equipment that we use, and they actually test some of them. But some of the modules, they actually depend on the community to to actually develop them and test them. Obviously, if there is a faulty or a bad companion module, it would only affect your companion instance if it is installed in the on your current instance. So basically, if you have a faulty module, you can always uninstall it, and that will basically take care of the problem.
Got it. So without further ado, we're going to kind of go through how the module works. But if you want to download the module right now, we can do that by going to this link here. And this will take you to Johnny's GitHub page where there will be a link to download the binary for what, Mac, Windows, and Linux?
Currently, I have the Windows, Mac x64, and the Mac ARM for if anybody has a new M1. I haven't done a build for Linux yet. I will have one because I have to set up my Linux distro so that I can actually build it. So I'll probably have it ready in that folder sometime this weekend.
Okay, and how different is it to compile? Is it just a one button push to like compile it for ARM, Mac, normal Mac, Windows, and Linux, or do you have to like actually know stuff?
Well, the companion folks have actually made it very, very easy. This, as you guys probably already know, Companion is an Electron app. So it's basically based on JavaScript and Node and the Chrome engine, basically the V8 engine. So it uses Node and it uses npm, and they actually created a number of npm scripts that facilitate a lot of the development process of both the core and the modules within Companion. And one of those scripts actually allows you to create builds, and they have scripts to create builds for Windows and for Mac OS, for the new M1, and for Linux as well.
Got it. So we're going to go talk about how it is configured right now. So I'm going to take over the kind of the iPad MixEffect side. So one of the first things that you need to do, as you can see the screen here, is you need to figure out the IP address of your iOS or iPad device. So I think most people who are going to be running the kind of companion Stream Deck integration with MixEffect will probably be using iPads. And I recommend getting your iPad plugged into Ethernet. And so if you have, say, like an iPad Pro, you can get like a USB hub with an Ethernet port. And then when you plug in the Ethernet port, you'll see this thing. If you look in the image in the upper right, an Ethernet thing will appear in the settings app, and then you can tap that and the circle will have the IP address. So you need to make note of that. If you have an iPhone or maybe even an iPod Touch that you're just using as like an OSC server, you can do that too with the Lightning to USB 3 adapter, and you plug in a USB 3 Ethernet adapter, and then also plug that into power, which is very important. And that's how you would do that. And then if you're doing it over Wi-Fi, which I don't recommend because, Wi-Fi can sometimes be flaky, you just go into settings and Wi-Fi, tap on the current network that you're attached to and figure out what that IP address is. And then the next thing you need to do in MixEffect is there's three things you need to do. First, you need to go into the settings part of MixEffect. That's the little gear icon in the upper left-hand corner. You need to tap on automations, and then you need to enable automations and then enable the OSC at the bottom. Then you need to go into your switcher that you want to actually use for OSC. So remember, MixEffect can connect to a multitude of switchers, and some of them you may want to control via OSC, some of them you may not, because you may have a button on your companion thing that like runs something on one switcher, but you don't want it to run on another one. So you need to go into your switcher, and that's the image on the right, and you need to scroll down and tap the toggle to enable the OSC server, and then you need to specify a port number. And you need to remember that port number because in the next slide, we're going to talk about what you need to do in Companion itself. So Johnny, I'll let you take this one.
Sure, it's super simple. Once you create a companion module and the companion folks have added it to the core, it would appear here on the list of possible connections that you can make. So you could, obviously, our companion module starts with the name Adam Tao, so it's going to appear at the top of the list. You're not even going to have to actually go through the search. But once you find the module, you basically just click the Add button. And once you have clicked the Add button, there will be there would be a configuration page that would allow you to set the IP address of the iOS device that MixEffect is going to be running on. Whether, again, like Adam mentioned, that could be your iPad, it could be an iPhone or an iPod Touch if that's the case. And that port that Adam mentioned that you should remember, that this is where you would actually add that port, which means that every instance of MixEffect is going to control one ATEM within MixEffect. So basically, if you're going to be controlling multiple ATEM devices from MixEffect, you would need to actually add additional instances of the companion module in order for that to work.
Yeah, or you could just change the existing module and change the port number, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's kind of confusing because usually when you think of Companion, at least when I think of it, I'm like controlling one thing. But because MixEffect can kind of connect to so many different things, it's like I get confused by all the different permutations that you can have. Like I, for instance, have like an A10 Mini Pro over here. It's not on right now, but I could see myself having like a set of companion pages that configure that. So once you have the connection set up, walk us through briefly, and then we'll go into a demo of kind of what you have to do.
Okay, the way Companion works, basically, it allows you to configure the buttons on your Stream Deck. And the way it works is basically you would click on a particular button, one that is empty, for example, and on the right-hand side, the edit button page is going to appear, and it's going to allow you to create different types of buttons. The type of buttons that we're going to be creating are regular buttons. And once you create a regular buttons, you can have a companion button actually do a number of different actions, not necessarily just one action. So there is where we would be able to add the different actions that Adam and I have created within the module in order to control MixEffect.
Okay, let's get straight into a demo of this. I'm going to turn on my Mac display here, and I'm going to change my my multi-view display to show the Mac so I can actually see what I'm doing here. So this is actually, this screen that you see here is the Stream Deck that you see in my video to my left. And so what we have here is, if I click on, say, this intro one, which we actually don't want to run, but if I want to click on, say, the one I just pushed, which was the Mac Mini one, and actually let me go switch to full screen for everyone. So this one here is the 3 left that I was just on, the 3 left Mac Mini. And you can see how the action is MixEffect SuperSource preset. Now, before you would have had to do the MixEffect, and you'd have to say send string, and then you'd have to know the path. It's like MixEffect SuperSource preset, and then you need to know the string here. And that's how you did it in the past. But the great thing about what Johnny's module does is that all you have to do now is click on this add key down on action, type in, actually you can just type in preset, and then you'll see a list of all the SuperSource preset commands. So we did SuperSource preset, and that's this one up here, and then we just enter the name of the preset. And so when you push that button, and we can test that by pushing the button. Let's see, where's the test button? I will just push the button on the actual device. 3 left Mac, and you see how it changes to that view there. And I'm going to switch back to my multi-view so I can see what's happening. And then obviously there's all sorts of other commands here. So these commands here that you see up here are all the SuperSource presets I've created. I've also have like a previous and next still. So if I actually went back to this view here, and then we're on the demo, if I just hit the button here for previous still, it just goes to the previous stills that I had earlier in the presentation. And then I can just go all the way back to the demo one there. So if we go back to the Mac, and then I will make it full screen again, switch that up. There's also other things that you could do. So this one here runs the preset 042 horizontal with companion thirds. And this is actually part of the new feature of MixEffect. So if I just click on this button here, it actually transitions to a SuperSource and runs a macro. So new in MixEffect 1.2 is the ability to bind macros to your SuperSource presets. And these macros will run either when you launch the preset or when you exit the preset. So it's a great way if you use SuperSource to do things like you can change like your SuperSource background art. You can add a foreground art if you want to kind of have like a cutout of SuperSource, or if you want to just change the background because you're doing something different. It's a fantastic way to kind of level up your SuperSource transition. So I encourage you to take a look at that. So coming back to the Mac, and I'll go back to the Mac Mini full screen. Do this. We also have like previous and next presets. So there's another feature within this, Johnny, that I'd like you to talk about, which are the presets. Now there's SuperSource presets and there's companion presets. So why don't you talk us through this, and I will click for you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, companion presets are actually really cool because they allow us to basically start creating buttons on Companion very quickly. The idea of the preset is basically to have some pre-configured buttons that are very useful, and basically they're literally drag and drop. Like Adam did, we have actually different well, you have to click obviously on the button that says MixEffect presets, but there are different categories. We actually group them by different categories. And once you select one of those categories, you're going to see a number of buttons that we have pre-configured for you, so that you don't even have to worry about what parameters you actually have to put. So if you actually want to get started up and running very easily, you can literally drag and drop these buttons onto your companion configuration page, and those buttons will be ready. Of course, you can always modify them and configure them as you please, but they're an easy way to get started with companion and our MixEffect module.
Okay, so you can actually drag and drop these onto pages. Is that correct?
Correct. That's
okay,
correct.
So let's actually do that right now. So I have page 24 here, and I'm going to actually go to 24 on my Stream Deck here. And let's go back to the view so we can see all of us. Very well. And I'm going to go to preset, and let's just do a highlight one. So we got SuperSource highlight. I'm going to put, I actually like reset in the first position. I'll put highlight here. Oh, this is kind of nice. Okay, I only have 3 boxes right now. So let's see what happens if I push the highlight. So on my Stream Deck right here, I see the exact same thing reflected. So if I say highlight box 1, let's see what happens. It highlights me because I'm box 1. If I highlight Johnny, he's box 2. And I highlight the Mac Mini screen, there's box 3. Now, you see that I'm actually kind of overlaid on top. So with SuperSource, box number 1 is always on top, followed by box number 2, box number 3, and box number 4. So if you are using the highlight feature, just make sure you don't kind of like have box 1 like overlap the other ones. And you can do that by changing the box size parameters. And I think, is there a preset for that? That may be just an action that you need to configure, but you can make shrink the size of the highlighted box. Now I'm going to click the reset button here. So it looks like we have a bunch of controls that we have available to us. What is missing?
There are a lot of things missing. Basically, what we did, first of all, we created actions for every single OSC command that you had already made available to us via the MixEffect app. So that's the first thing we did. We also, we went back and forth and we talked about the best use cases for that individuals could have to start running very quickly, and that's why we came up with this list of presets. something that is definitely missing from what we can do with Companion right now is the ability to receive feedback from Companion. And that is something that I'm sure Adam and I will be working on in the near future to be able to add. As a matter of fact, one of the individuals from Office Hours, actually, that was their first question. When are we going to be able to get feedback from MixEffect in order to be able to change the aspect of the buttons. Let's say, for example, if we have a particular super source enabled, we can actually change the color of the button to indicate that that super source is active, or there's all sorts of stuff that you can actually do. Those of you that have used Companion and used feedback know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right. There is one thing that we have added, which are variables, at least kind of like our initial little dipping our toe into variables. Can you talk a little bit about that? And I will focus on the screen.
Sure, absolutely. Variables are a way to actually receive feedback from any device, basically, and they actually change their content or their value based on a particular event or a particular state of either a device or a piece of software. But we can use them creatively however we want. Unfortunately, we don't have a means to receive feedback from MixEffect yet. Like I mentioned, that's something that's coming in the future. But what we did decide to do was we created a variable that would allow us to select the media player that we want to be able to use other buttons to manipulate. The idea is that whenever we have a button or an action that requires manipulating a media player, where there is loading a still or anything else, we typically have to specify a particular media player. And in this particular case, what we did was we created a variable that we can actually switch, and we can actually set a particular media player. And then within the configuration of the button, all we do, instead of specifying that we want a specific media player, we just say, you know what, whichever the selected media player that we configure with that variable, that is the media player that is going to be used for this particular action in this particular button. This makes this page incredibly versatile, because instead of us having a separate page with all the stills and be able to load them to every single media player, we can actually have little buttons on the bottom, like Adam has on the bottom left there, to be able to select a particular media player, and then that in effect basically automatically changes the configuration of all the buttons, and they'll use the media player that he has selected. The variables are actually really cool as well, because you can actually add them to the button text and have the status of that variable display. So you can actually take that and actually add it to a button, like he has exactly on button 27 there. And if you add it to the button text, when you change the media player, it'll actually display the content of that variable. So they're actually very versatile and very useful.
Yeah, when I saw that, I thought this was great. Is this in the non-beta release of Companion, or is this like a Companion beta only feature?
My understanding is that this is in the beta feature, the beta of Companion right now. It has not made it on the latest release.
Got it. So we were demoing that action, and I'm going to actually do a quick demo of this. So if I'm going to switch to my media player here, I think it's this super source right here. So I actually should have a super source that shows the media player and the Mac, so you can actually see what's happening. But you can see here I have the buttons that we were just showing and the page. So right now I'm affecting media player 1, but media player 2 is the one that's showing the demo right now, the demo slide. So if I tap on this, and now I see that media player 2 is selected because it's in red, and I see 2 right here because that's a selected one, I could like say previous still and move it like this. Or I can go to still 1. And there we go. And then I can move like this. But let's say if I was wanting to switch media player 1, I would just tap this and I can do all my moving of the stills. And you can't see this, but I see it on my multi-view that media player 1 is now being affected. So this is actually a great way if you have an A10 Mini Extreme ISO or any of the other A10 switchers that have multiple media players, multiple USKs, how you can control it from one switcher page, as opposed to having like a page that's just media player 1 and a page that's just media player 2. And I don't know, is this something that Companion comes with an A10 module itself? Do you know if that has that capability?
Um, in theory, they actually have the ability to create custom variables. So in theory, with the custom variables, you could set up something very, very similar. But obviously, it requires a little bit of configuration. The beauty of what we did is that the buttons are literally just there, and you can just drag and drop them in, and they're easier to do. And we'll probably make available the little companion configuration with these buttons so that folks can see examples of the things that we can do. But going back to your question, yes, it's doable, but again, it requires a little bit of knowledge and configuration within within the companion app.
Yeah. So in terms of like the future, when I first started writing the kind of the OSC kind of support, I was like just focusing on super source. And then I started adding like media player, things like that. And I didn't really want to recreate the existing A10 module companion because it just seemed like, oh my God, I have, I do it from the app. I'm doing it in shortcuts. Do I have to do it again in OSC? But I'm getting to the point where I think that is what I need to do to make this product like even more powerful. So what are your thoughts on that? And do you have the time to work on this, or do you think other people in the community can help us?
Well, first of all, I think that it would be incredibly useful. For one thing, the ATEM obviously can be controlled via multiple ways. It can be controlled using their control software, or it could be controlled using your MixEffect app. The one thing that I notice is that it has a limited number of connections that you can actually establish to it. So while there are things that you can do with your Stream Deck to connect directly to your ATEM, again, if you're going to be using that and you're going to be using the MixEffect app, that's an additional connection. If you're going to be using the ATEM software control, that's an additional connection. I have run into situations where I haven't been able to connect to my ATEM in a particular point in time. So having the entire control via OSC and being able to control the ATEM via the MixEffect app, via the companion module, that means that there's only going to be a single connection to the companion, and it'll obviously avoid that type of issue. With respect to whether we have time, I am definitely invested in this project. Again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a little bit lazy and I'm a little bit selfish, and I'm actually doing this for myself too. But I definitely encourage anybody in the community, anybody who's watching who happens to be a JavaScript developer or maybe has contributed to Companion in the past, to jump into the project. I mean, it is an open source project, so we welcome anybody's help. Pull requests are definitely accepted here.
And again, the link right there is mixeffect.app/companion, and that'll take you to Johnny's GitHub repo where you can help contribute to it. I'd like to thank you for joining us. I think we have some time for some Q&A, and I'm going to try something new here. I'm using Aaron Parecki's kind of like chat overlay for the very first time. So let's see if this works. I'm going to go back to the 2 horizontal, and I'm going to take a look at some of the chat here. And let's see what happens if I tap this button here. Let's see what happens if I tap that and tap that. Oops, that didn't work. So I'm using the upstream keyer here, and my macro didn't actually do what I thought it should do. So let's see what's happening here. I'm using upstream keyer 3, and it should be masking it, but it's not masking it. That's not good. So let's see what's happening here. Should be using the Chroma.
On live shows all the time.
This was like the first mistake on it. So Chroma, and this is, let's see, Zoom ISO 4. And how come it's not chroming out? Oh, it's a Luma. Is it Luma? It's a Luma. Let's try that. So let's go back to Zoom ISO 4, and let's turn that on air. There we go. And awesome. Let me enable the flying key and move it a little bit. Oh, actually, there we go. Enable the flying key. Okay. And since we're showing this in real time, I'm going to actually go to the iPad and show you how I'm going to move my boxes up a little bit, because we are a little too high. So I'm actually going to go to, you won't be able to see this because I have to actually modify the main one, but actually I can just run, let's see, I can run this one. And then I'm in SuperSource right now, and I'm just gonna like move the boxes up a little bit, and you'll just see us like that. And I'm actually going to create a new preset and 2 horizontal higher so that I can recall this later. So we'll go back to the iPad here, and then I can go to the 2 horizontal higher if I can find it in my list of presets. Let's see, where did it go? It disappeared. So, because it doesn't have the tag associated with it. Okay, so Tom Q's Tech Tips. Tom, thank you for joining us. You were the person that kind of like helped me improve SuperSource a lot in the early days of it. So thank you for coming to this. Some people who are also here, let's see, Urban Media Showcase, and we got Keith Bennett from Washington. If you haven't subscribed to Keith's site, definitely go and do that. He does some great videos on Hyperdeck and all things A10. And also, Tom Q has a YouTube channel. Definitely go check that out as well. Other people who are joining the stream are Ted Stons, Glenn Allen. I'm just going to click through these really fast. So thank you for joining us. Let's see. You hooked your iPad Pro to a switch via Ethernet adapter and it works very well. Yeah, I definitely recommend Ethernet for the best reliability. Oklahoma City, let's see, Portland, Maine. Oh, we have our first question from Absolute. I had issues connecting OSC of a Mac Mini MixEffect instance. Do I have to change the OSC path? I would take a look at the port number and the IP address of the Mac and just make sure it's pointing to the right thing. And also make sure that the MixEffect running on the M1 Mac Mini is not hiding in the background. So it needs to be visible right now. Because it's an iOS app that's running on the M1 Apple Silicon processors, it follows the same kind of processes that an iOS app is. So if you put it to the background, it will like disappear and then it will shut down everything in MixEffect land. And I'm trying to figure out how to not let that happen so that it just runs in the background, whether it's like visible or not. But definitely make sure it's in the foreground. If you still have problems, reach out to us on either Slack or Discord or the Facebook group, and we can probably figure out what the problem is. Let's see. Create a chat for MixEffect. I think, well, we kind of a chat. Oh, yes. So I thought about this at one point, like how can you like talk to other people who are running copies of MixEffect? But then I thought, well, because of the ATEM connection problem, you can only have 5. That would probably not be a good idea if you have like 3 people using MixEffect just to chat, and then you have other people who are trying to control, but they can't control because it's hogging up all the connections. You know, and I've had instances where I'm running ATEM software control, 2 copies of MixEffect on my iPad and my iPhone, and then I turn on Companion, and suddenly nothing can connect. I'm like, oh crap, what happened? What's wrong? And I shut everything down, and I load everything up individually, and then it suddenly works. Aaron Precky, definitely chat about possible MixEffect and chat extension integrations. Yes, so this is my first time using this chat module that Aaron created, and I've already come up with ideas on how I can improve it. So I am running this entire Zoom ISO thing from one M1 Mac Mini. I have and if you watch my previous Zoom ISO thing with Keith and Tony, we were using a Blackmagic DeckLink Duo that's connected to a Sonnet PCIe kind of enclosure, and that turns SDI into HDMI. I have these Blackmagic converters which go into my ATEM's 5, 6, 7, 8 inputs. And then 1 input is my camera, 2 input is my iPad, 3 is my iPod Touch, which is actually the SuperSource background, and 4 is my, let's see, what is 4? 4 is my Mac Mini. So I'm like all out of ports. So how am I going to show a chat if I was like trying to, and I don't have extra monitors because my Mac Mini monitor is like, I have the Apple XDR display here, and I have like an HDMI 1080p monitor. So I can't put like the chat thing on, on another monitor. So what I ended up doing is I'm using an iPod Mini here, and I don't want to like move it too much. And it's running the kind of the browser pop-up overlay window, and I have it turned on to guided access so I can't like touch the screen and like dicker with things. And it's AirPlaying to the Apple TV that I have plugged into port 5. So I don't have Zoom ISO 4. I have Zoom ISO 1, 2, and 3. So let me hide that chat right there and see what else we have. So George Kennedy, a mainstay on office hours, great work. Steve, watching from SF, just down the road from where I live in the Bay Area. TJ Digital, you use a lot of Companion from Portugal. And Glenn Allen, I know we've been talking a lot on the MixEffect Slack group. Thanks for joining. So I don't see any other questions here. So I'm going to go back to us. Do you have any last words, Johnny?
Well, no, I actually wanted to thank you for collaborating with me on this project. Like I said, this was something that I really wanted to do, and with your help we were able to make it happen. And like we mentioned in the past, if there is somebody out there who wants to help us out and contribute, yeah, we would gladly accept pull requests. So just contact us in the actually you could contact me on Twitter at Johnny Estilles, or you can contact Adam on his Slack server. Yeah, I mean, we have multiple ways to get contacted. So please, yeah, join us and let's make this project great.
Yeah, I'm very looking forward to the future of MixEffect plus Companion. One last thing actually that I have for you, like you mentioned earlier that you were using Stream Deck plugins or the Stream Deck software itself, and then you switched over to Companion. Do you currently run both of them at the same time, or do you just run the Companion software?
I was when I started, there was no comfortable way to actually run them both simultaneously, and I've actually tried using them both simultaneously, but I don't really have much of a need for any of the native Stream Deck software plugins. So right now I'm using it exclusively with Companion.
Okay. So one other thing that people have asked is like a native Stream Deck plugin. So if you're also interested in contributing, ping me and maybe we can make that become a reality. But again, I want to thank you again, Johnny Estilles, for joining us today. People who are watching on the stream, definitely go and download the beta right now at mixeffect.app/companion. And then when Companion actually adds it to its own betas, you can go download the nightly builds, and it will have the MixEffect module in it, and you can use that. And if you have questions, you can post on, Facebook. We have the Slack. Where is the best place to talk about like stuff? Is the BitFocus Slack community, is that a good place to talk about problems with particular modules, or should we just stick to our own MixEffect groups?
We could do either way. I think one of the best places to actually, if we want to have a discussion, would probably be the Companion Slack. But also, if you actually have an issue, just go to the repo and post an issue on GitHub, and we can actually have a discussion there, and we can either solve it right there on the spot, or maybe somebody can contribute and submit a pull request for the fix as well.
Right on. Okay, so with that, I'm going to bid everyone good night. Thank you all for joining this live stream. Thank you, Johnny, for taking all the time to actually build this module. I think it's going to be a fantastic addition to the community, and we will see you next time at the next live stream. In fact, I am going to be on a live stream with John Barker, Aaron Parecki, I think Petra, and then who else is coming to this live stream tomorrow? Let me take a look real quick. There's one other person. We're going to be talking about the future of the A10. And so there's a stream. It's going to be on John Barker's channel. So definitely go to the Here to Record channel and then tune in. It's going to be at noon tomorrow, which is Saturday, noon Pacific. So whatever that is in your time. So definitely, if you want to learn about the future of the A10 from a bunch of us, definitely check out that video. But again, thank you, Johnny. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next time. I'm going to go to the outro.